All right. What is up, everyone? It is Saturday, January 22nd of 2022. Like I said last week, I'm still getting used to saying 2022 in a sentence, but I'm able to now. And today I'm very excited because this is something that we were doing in the past for like maybe 2 months, and it kind of fell off. And I kind of realized that, it's okay to be sitting here and talking to people on a weekly basis, trying my best to provide family education support. But what better way to do it than through the eyes and experiences of those who have gone the way, walked the way, know the way, and they can hopefully show the way to people who might be going through a similar experience. So good morning, Jim. Happy to have you on. And what I'm going to do right now is just a quick introduction of myself for anyone that's new watching this. My name is Param. I'm one of the people that helps manage Buckeye Recovery Network. I have a master's degree in marriage and family therapy with an emphasis in child development. I do have a licensed advanced alcohol and drug counselor, so I'm licensed as an addiction specialist. I coach high school basketball, and kind of this is my passion. And what this is the family education and support group. It's free for all, accessible to all. Whoever wants to watch it, join it, ask questions. Whoever wants to share it can. And the idea behind this session specifically, and some of the sessions to follow, is, like I said, I want to be able to bring human beings, real life human beings, not paid actors and actresses, and have them come on this stage and be able to talk about their experience of not just the recovery process, but even the addiction process and what those days were like. Because as much as we want to push that aside, the fact is that it was real. We experienced it, and now we're on the other side, and hopefully what we have to do to maintain it. So the guests that we have here are Mary and Marcus. Marcus is a proud alumni of ours that's been clean and sober for a good amount of time, that I feel comfortable enough with his journey and his healing path and his recovery to be able to say, hey, you can come talk on this subject in a really powerful way. Someone that came to us from a residential treatment facility out in another state. So it took a lot of courage. It took a lot of faith. It took a lot of trust for this individual to leave everything he knows to come to us and to be put in a safe environment and hopefully start his healing journey. And that's Marcus. And his mom, Mary, she's been actually, she's been supportive of this specific family education group from the time Marcus has been here with us. She's watched a lot of these. She's been active in the discussion board. She's gained a lot from this for herself. So I just want to show that when an individual goes through the recovery process, like for themselves, that the family members can go through the same recovery process side by side with their loved one, and it has nothing to do with their loved one. Even though maybe Marcus was the reason why Mary started this journey. However, once she starts doing this for herself, she realizes, like, oh my gosh, how many things about myself, my life, my world, my experience have I suppressed? Have I neglected? Have I pushed aside because I was so worried about Marcus and what was going on with him? Like, wake up, like, what am I doing with my life? And that's the whole point of family recovery, that the family members are able to access the same thing that, individuals struggling with addictions can access through the process of recovery. So that being said, Marcus, Mary, what is up? How are you?
Hi.
How's it going?
Good morning.
Really good morning. Thank you for making it to us in Mountain Time. It's an hour ahead. It's 11 o'clock there right now, right?
Yeah.
So thank you for being here this morning. And I'm just going to get into it. So, Mary, I'm going to ask you a question. So when and where did you guys learn that Marcus was struggling with addiction? So when I say when and where, I'm talking about how long ago?
It's been a number of years. It was ninth grade, and he's 26 now. So
Okay.
Ninth grade is kind of when we started. We kind of thought, this is just normal, almost high school behavior. He'll snap out of it, kind of thing. And then I was moved to Denver for my job, and we thought it was best to leave him there to finish high school, and that actually wasn't a very good idea.
Yeah.
So it started to escalate, and we moved him down to Denver with me, and that didn't work. He's gravitated towards the people who he, gravitated towards back home. And so we had a long journey of learning that it wasn't going to just stop. We weren't going to just get him to, go through his high school things and whatever. It just started to get worse and worse, and a little bit of underlying mental health issues, I think, that didn't help.
Sure.
And so probably ninth grade, he was, 13, 14 years old.
Yeah, so 13, 14 years old, and he got clean and sober at 26 years old. So that's literally half the life right there. So for 12, 13 years, you're sitting there as a mom, just kind of struggling with the addiction of your young, impressionable child. And you know, and I will agree that sometimes a move in high school isn't a good thing. So you guys at the time, with the information you had to your devices, that was the right decision to make, to not kind of stir up the pot or create too many changes in the young adolescent mind. But once addiction has a hold on somebody, none of those rational choices or decisions even matter or anything like that, because it just changes it. So Marcus, as a 14-year-old or 13-year-old, 14-year-old, was it difficult at that time to hide your addiction from family members? So like when mom says, we just thought it was regular adolescent use, he's just experimenting, all that kind of stuff, and you know for a fact that you were doing a little bit more than just experimenting, was that hard to keep from mom and shield like from others?
Mainly just my mom. Where I grew up, it was kind of like the cultural norm to drink and smoke pot and do stuff like that. So it was socially acceptable in a lot of aspects, but like as far as school, being around my mom, police, stuff like that, it was definitely pretty hard to hide. But the rest of the aspects of my life, it was just kind of like accepted. So
yeah, and when you say you were raised, I mean, I know where you were raised in, but can you just say what region of the country that is?
Butte, Montana.
Yeah, Butte, Montana. That's Rocky Mountain. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's and that's kind of sad. If you think about it, it's sad to say, like, as a 13, 14-year-old in that region of the world at that time, for example, it was just the norm and accepted to kind of like drink and use substances. That is really sad, because that's not what 13, 14-year-old kids are supposed to be doing. You know, and I do understand that not all 13, 14-year-old kids in that area were doing that. It just happened to be your norm, but it's just sad that that's the norm for someone, you know. So mom, so from the time he was 13, 14 years old, and you found out that he's struggling with addiction, I know like eventually it comes in phases, right? At first, like, oh, he's using this. And then it's like, wait a second, he's using this. Like, oh my God, he's using this.
Yeah.
What kind of things did you guys try or did you guys do to help Marcus through your journey?
You know, at first his dad and I sat down with him and just talked. I mean, I've always had a really open relationship, so that was hard for me because I felt a little betrayed that, you know, it had gone as far as it had gone and I didn't really even know. So the first thing that we did is we sat down with him and, you know, tried to, you know, tell him how your life isn't gonna end well if you keep going down this path. And then we got him into treatment. He stayed the first time only for like, I think 7 days.
How old was he the first time you got into treatment?
17?
No, I was 21.
21 the first time?
No, I went to the doctor.
Okay, so before that, there were other, you know, he had gone to counseling and psychiatric and that kind of thing. And so finally, the first treatment was 21, and he didn't stay, and that was devastating. We did everything that we could to try to make him stay. We didn't know enough about any of this, who to call, so his friend came to get him. We called his friend and begged him not to come and get him. And his friend had rationale that if I don't, somebody else will. You know, we all had that rationale.
Yeah.
And so that didn't work. He came back, and I don't remember how many times were in treatment.
3.5.
3.5 times. The last time before he came to you guys, we felt like we had gone through everything that we could go through. We just did this, you know, we didn't give up, and we never gave up hope, but it was gut-wrenching to try to see him be sober for a short amount of time and then just in our mind for no reason. And now I understand that there's a lot of reasons, but at that time it didn't feel like it. And so it's very frustrating. And so the last time when he decided on his own to come to California, and he did it all on his own without any really help from us. And I think that just the times that he had gone through, he learned a little bit more at each time. And by the time he got to make his own decision to go there, it really stuck. He really knew what he needed to do.
Okay, so let me just summarize that real quick, because there was a lot of information there.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's perfect. It really is. So because I want people to hear this right now. So when Marcus, you know, they knew that something's wrong around 13 and 14 years old. And mom said it was 21 that he got sent to treatment. So we're talking about formal treatment for substance abuse. However, I know just by talking to you, the way that you present yourself, that you were really engaged and you wanted to find a solution to this. So prior to the treatment realm, people do try primary doctors. People do try psychologists. People do try psychiatrists. People do try, okay, what's going on with the mental health? That's why he's using the substance. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that people do. So those 7 years, I think from 14 to 21, even though he wasn't in any type of formal treatment for substance abuse, what was that like for you? I mean, did you feel kind of hopeless of like whatever you're trying isn't working?
I did.
I bet, yeah.
Mhm.
That's, you know, and I usually don't like to use my own experience when other people are talking about their experience, but my mom and dad, they're watching this right now because I saw their comment. That's what they tried also. I mean, they just tried sending me to psychologists and addiction psychiatrists and anything but treatment because they just wanted to see if they can, you know, help in any other way or whatever. They just didn't know what the heck was going on. So
Right.
your story is very common, Mary. I mean, I'm glad that you tried so many things, but Marcus, your mom said you finally went to treatment in 21, and then she said this last time around when he came to us at, you know, was it 25, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Okay. So this last time around, oh, by the way, Tony's on. He said, proud of you, Marcus.
Hi,
Awesome.
Tony.
Yeah, there he
I
is.
met Tony. Yeah.
Yeah. He just said proud. I know he was the primary counselor. So what was that? What's the difference, Marcus? This is a good question. I want people to understand. So mom said this last time around you came and you did it for yourself. So what's the difference between the first few times of doing this, doing it for other people like your mom, which I know you love, and realizing that, hey, I'm doing this for myself? Because I remember vividly you told me that yourself. You know, one day you're like, Barm, I'm just doing this for me now. It's not for my mom, dad, my people back home. I just can't live the way I'm living. So what is it like to go from external motivation to internal motivation? Like, how was that process like for you?
I think the first couple times that I went to treatment, it was because I had to. You know, I was losing the job. Family was pissed at me, forcing my life in the gutter. And I was like, all right, I gotta get help. I gotta reach out. But it was kind of like a forced voluntary sort of thing. And after being in a sober living facility for like 6 months, I saw enough of the program, enough of recovery to kind of understand, like, okay, so there's a better way. And what I was doing isn't it. And then, you know, I had a relapse. And before I came down to California, there was an actual genuine internal want to get that better, easier, softer way, I guess, and just do what was suggested because I wanted it. And, you know, the first few times it was to kind of get my family off my ass, try and get my job back, you know, try to get back to the using successfully phase. And that ship had sailed. So this time,
What Marcus said there, regardless, everybody wants to know what that means. I hear a little echo. I don't know what's going on there, but it's okay. Technical difficulties. We're okay with them. Marcus said that the first few times I did this, I did it to get someone or something off my back, right? And that's very normal. So external motivation in recovery says, I'm doing it for the spouse. I'm doing it for my parents. I'm doing it for my children. I'm doing it for my job. I'm doing it for the judge, by the way, is a very common one. I'm doing it for anything and everything but me because I don't have a problem, but I'm going to do it for all these people. And people come to the recovery process. And as soon as their back is off against the wall, the flame is lowered, the mom's okay, the spouse is okay, the children are okay, the boss is okay, the judge is okay. They're like, all right, I've done my job and I'm back to doing what I used to do. External motivation will fail 10 out of 10 times. Now, is it okay to enter treatment with primarily external motivation? It's okay to enter it with primary motivation. But at some point in that process, the individual has to go from being externally motivated to say, hey, maybe I started this for my mom, but I'm doing this and continuing this for myself. Maybe I started this for the judge, but I'm doing it and continuing it for myself. Now, Marcus, this last time around, came in saying, I'm doing this for myself. So as long as it gets to that point, this stuff can stick. And there's a parent right here that watches this every week, by the way, because they watched this and they said, Dan and Debbie here, Mary and Marcus, thank you for sharing. Using successfully is so familiar to us. You know, that's every child at some point thinks they're using successfully and it's successful in their perspective, but the mom and dad are just watching their loved one kind of dwindle away. And it's such a painful experience. So anybody that has questions, by the way, of Mary and Marcus, I will absolutely honor those questions and get them in there. So, and Julian, by the way, told you, congrats, brother, stoked, you are crushing it, you know, and you really, really are, man. Crushing it in their terminology means you're doing a really good job. I've learned that. So the question here is, this one it's a little difficult for both of you because I think it's a painful reflection. But what were the final days like before going into treatment? So this last time around, at least, Mary, those final days, meaning like, not knowing if he's going to live or die. I mean, just straight up, I'll say it like that. Not knowing if he's going to end up being in prison, a violation of something. And Marcus, for you, after mom answers, I want you to answer. Like, what was those last days of like getting high, getting by, just surviving like a creature almost? What are those things like? So, Mary, you can start first. I want you to close your eyes, take a walk down memory lane to before Marcus came out this time around for himself. What were you going through as a mom internally?
I unfortunately felt I was so hopeless at that point. It was like, here we go again. What's this going to do? The one thing after looking at your site and all, talking with your folks, it's more holistic. It seemed to me, Marcus is a very sensitive soul. And to me, it seemed, the fact that you had things to do outside, the fact that, it was more of a family environment. It was more of more people his age that he could relate to, I think, gave me a little bit of hope. But honestly, I was just so broken by that point that I didn't hold out a lot of hope. And it's hard to trust. It's hard to believe that, okay, this time it's going to work. But so yeah, leading up to that, it was probably a lot of that.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I do this education support every week. I swear to God, it's just because I know there's people like you, Mary, that have lost hope. Like I just know they've lost hope, and I don't think we can ever lose hope as human beings, even though the addiction process makes us feel that way. And it's like watching the same movie again. You know what the ending's like, and you're like, I've seen this before. I mean, the ending's going to be what's different. Maybe a couple cast characters are different and this and that, but the narrative of the story is the same over and over again. But despite of that, you gave it an honest try. Despite of that, you suited up and showed up. Despite of that, you were engaged in this recovery process, talking to the Tonys of the world every single week and all that kind of stuff. And here we are right now. So, Marcus, what was it like for you before you got on that plane from Montana, or not? No, actually, before you went into the Rocky Mountain Treatment Facility in Montana, what were those days like for you?
Really hopeless. I honestly, I had done it before and I didn't think this would be any different. And I had this really dismal, pessimistic outlook that was like, why even bother? Why even try again? You can't stay sober. You've proven your past track record shows you might get a little bit of time, but you're bound to relapse. And why even put everybody through that again? And it was just a really dark, depressing place that I was in. And I think having a sponsor that was sane enough to talk some sense into me. And he said, well, give it another shot. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. And, my end game was never to come to California. That was not in my plan. And I just tried. I did what was suggested and just kept doing it. And the results changed. And I had a lot of people telling me through this process, this last time, that your past track record is not an indication of your future. And that was something that I didn't really see possible. At the time, while I was in treatment, I thought about giving up damn near every day for the first 2 weeks. I really didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And just getting through day by day, it got better and better. And then it started getting great, and it got even better than that. So it was kind of easy to get a little hope back after that.
Yeah, that negative self-talk you're talking about like, hey, what's going to be different? How am I going to do this? What's going to be different this time around? I'm going to fail again. That negative self-talk, that narrative, right? It is based on some factual evidence from the past. However, you are not your story. You are not your past. You are who you are in this present moment and who you're going to be in the next moment, And the beauty of being a human being, and you know this, I talk about this, I believe in the possibility of human transformation. I believe that each second of each day, we can rewrite our story, right? Like you have rewritten the story of someone that can't do it, won't do it, is going to fail because you've done it, you are doing it, and you've succeeded. So therefore, you have two versions of Marcus, the previous one and the current one. Now, for the first time in a long time, you have a choice on who you want to be, right? You got a choice now. Before, you had no choice. It was always the same version. The same guy kept showing up. But now a different guy showed up. So you prove to yourself, to Mary, to the world that there's two Marcuses. Which one you want to be, right? And if you commit to choose that one person one day at a time, you eventually become that person. So there's only one version of Marcus. Like the other version won't even exist no more. And that's the most powerful thing of recovery. So the next one, Mary, this gets into recovery, I think, a little bit about your own recovery. So how has Marcus's recovery impacted you and your family's life? So since he's been out here doing his thing, I know he's visiting you back home right now. I mean, how cool is this? A split
That's
screen,
so cool.
a split screen with a mom and her son, and talking about recovery is probably as cool as it gets. Because imagine if you guys were on a split screen the day Marcus started the recovery journey. I mean, it would have been a whole different experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me, what was it been like for you, Mary? How has it impacted you and your family's life?
We've learned so much. I think it's, and not only just the recovery of him, but the recovery of us and how we live in the world. That sounds kind of strange, but I found Al-Anon. I had been told to do that for a long time and didn't do it. First went to it and expected magic and didn't get it. But I feel like this world is this community, I guess, for lack of a better word, is so tight, and we're everywhere. It doesn't matter that you're rich, you're poor, whatever. You could have an addicted son. And the community that I've found and that my family has found has really helped us to be better people as well. And to understand what Marcus really has gone through has been really beneficial for me. That there's a lot more to it than just what we see on the face. And so the education part has really helped our family, I think.
Yeah, I mean, education, knowledge, support, community, these are things that we all need in general, but we really need when we're going through something that doesn't make sense to us.
Right.
Because addiction doesn't make sense to anybody. I mean, it really doesn't. It's just it's cunning, baffling, it's powerful. It shows up in different ways at different times in different places. It doesn't care if there's a family gathering going on. It doesn't care if there's a graduation, a wedding, a funeral. It doesn't matter. It just shows up in the worst times. And going through those experiences is confusing. And when we have a support group, like you said, Al-Anon, and you finally gave it a chance to see what it's all about, and that is something I want to urge all family members to do. When you try a support group, please give it an honest try. You can go somewhere for the first or second time, and it's all foreign language. It's all happening fast. You don't understand a word anyone's saying. You think, why the heck are these people even smiling, let alone laughing, when they're here because someone in their life is dying? I mean, I'm not here because I'm having fun. I'm here because I don't know what else to do. Why are they joking and laughing and having a good time? Is because they found what, Marcus is laughing and joking and smiling this whole talk right now. So why is he doing it if he's dealing with addictions? Is because recovery is about joy and bliss and connection. So I'm glad you found that for yourself. And I hope the same way I tell Marcus, I hope you continue to maintain your recovery. I hope you also do the same, because just because Marcus is, clean and sober now and doing well and an active member of society doesn't mean that you don't deserve to still have your support in your community and in whatever you found so far. So Marcus, same question to you, man. What is different now in your life? Oh man, it's going to be a lot of things, huh? As a result of your recovery process.
Well, I live in California, and the weather is way nicer than in Montana or Colorado.
What's Montana's weather right now?
Probably like -30, something like that, right around there.
We're like rocking a 70 degrees. I got my short sleeves on. Here we go.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think more than anything, my ability to deal with life.
Yeah.
I was always, like my mom said, a really sensitive child. I was really not necessarily coddled, but I didn't have tools to learn how to develop in a healthy way. I just repressed everything. Drugs made it easier. I used them to really essentially block out pain and enhance pleasure. And now that those crutches are gone, I've learned how to deal with pain and enjoy pleasure in a normal sense, for lack of a better term. I know normal is just like a setting on a dryer, but
yeah,
my ability to communicate with people has been better. My ability to deal with anger, happy, joyous thoughts. I mean, in my past track record, I'm just as liable to get loaded over great times as I am bad times. And my ability to deal with success and failure has improved immensely. my relationships with my family, finding genuine friends, being able to help other people. All of those aspects of my life have improved drastically in this past year.
Yeah, man. You're a well-spoken guy too, and you speak with such like confidence in what you're saying. And when someone does that, I just know they're actually living it. So there's a difference between existing and going through the motions of life, and actually one like being engaged and invested in living life on life's terms and being like self-sufficient the way you're being self-sufficient at the level of the mind, the thought, the emotions, even taking care of yourself, financially and stuff like that. There's so much stuff, Marcus, that you found in this recovery process. But the most important thing is just understanding that you're worth it, man. Like you deserve a life that has everything that you're talking about right now. And then with active addiction, we were talking off camera before, we feel like we don't deserve any of this stuff because of all the bad things we do in our addiction. So that's the biggest change that I've seen in you because, and by the way, you used to talk a little different and dress a little different too, if I remember correctly. Were you one of the bandana guys? You used to wear bandanas, huh?
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I remember that. Hey, don't worry, Mary. I used to wear bandanas too. It was a really we when you don't know who you are, you kind of act a little tougher than you are. But
yeah.
you've polished up very professionally, of Marcus. So that is, and by the way, the way we present ourselves. So it doesn't matter. I mean, the bandana is just doesn't really matter. But the way we present ourselves, how we show up for others, how we use our words, how we use our actions, all of that is a byproduct of the recovery process. If we still act the way we did when we were actively using when we're sober, then all we've really done is stop the use of the drug and alcohol, but recovery is more than just stopping the use of drugs and alcohol. That's only the beginning, as you know, right? It's just the start of it. So Mary, what's it like now? So when you guys spend time with Marcus, now that he's visiting back home, what's it like? Give us a little hope. What's the contrast like?
It's night and day. He's just a really good person, and I knew he was in there somewhere. But I love talking to him. We talk about things for hours. We have a lot in common like that. We can go do things without a mood, without he's not wanting to not be with me or wanting to be somewhere else. He's genuinely here in the moment. I think he's learned to do that. It's been great. It's just been really, I'm so grateful to see the change in him, and that he's grown up. He makes good decisions, and he follows through with his decisions now. And if he has a crazy idea, he runs it by people and then accepts that it's a crazy idea instead of just going, screw you, I'm going to do it anyway. So yeah, I just see so much growth, and so much calmness with him. He's very content with where he is. He used to ask me that in my life always, what does it feel like to be content? Because he could never feel content. And I feel that he is now.
That's only a question someone that is really sensitive would ever ask somebody else. What is it like to be really content in life? Because they're just overthinking everything,
Yeah.
And something I do want to touch on that. Both of you guys said that Mark is a sensitive guy. And I do know this, that based on my personal experience working with thousands of people, in my professional experience working with thousands of people, I have noticed, and I've come to this conclusion, that most people that struggle with substance use disorder, so most people that use substances to cope with their emotions, they are highly sensitive individuals. Now, why is that? Because they get overwhelmed and flooded with their emotions. I mean, they legitimately, the level of empathy is so high sometimes they get overwhelmed, flooded with emotions. They don't know what to do with it. Maybe right now Marcus knows how to do with it because he has a support group and he can reach out to people and he's clean and sober and good, family support. But when he was younger, 13, 14, 15 years old, that kind of stuff, and he's highly emotional, he didn't have the language to do what he's doing right now. That's one. Two, he might have not had the correct support around him and all that kind of stuff with his peers. Like you were saying, it was just a certain group of friends that were probably all going through the same experience at the same time.
Yep.
But he was sensitive then and he's sensitive now. It's just now we know how to deal with the emotions. Nothing wrong with being sensitive, Marcus. That's one of probably the strong character attribute trait that you have is the fact that you are sensitive. But now you know what to do when you don't get overwhelmed with it. So one thing I do want to ask here, because I think it's important, is when Mom said, Marcus, right before you make some, crazy decisions or bad decisions or this, that you have like a team that you consult with. Can you tell us kind of like what's a decision like that you don't have to be specific, but anything, right? That that you were wanting to make a decision, but you pump the brakes on it and said, let me ask X, Y, and Z. and see what they say, and then take that information and accept it. What's something like that happened? Because there's a lot of people in early recovery that make irrational decisions or kind of impulsive decisions, and they don't do what you did there. And then there's some serious consequences for that action for them. So can you give an example on that?
Yeah. So throughout, me working a 12-step program, having counselors, therapists, a sponsor, I built like this picket fence, right? And I ping whatever great ideas I think I have, which usually aren't very great. For a prime example, where I was going to go to take a little vacation. I needed some rest and relaxation, some self-care. And I pinged it off of like several different people. And I got a pretty consistent answer. Go visit your family.
Yeah.
It'll be a perfect time to just kind of relax, hang out. And my initial good thought was not to do that. So, I mean, even with, 15 months of sobriety, my ideas aren't great. I still have a long way to go. And I ask people who have more of a clear mind frame of what they think would be best, kind of looking at it from an outside perspective. And they're people I trust. They're people that have gone through the things I've gone through, people that know me really well, because I don't have a facade. I show them who I am. And I mean, it gets from taking a vacation to, should I quit my job? Should I keep my job? Should I move here? Should I do this? Should I do that? And basically anything that I have second thoughts about, I'm like, well, you should run this by somebody, anybody, because your best thinking doesn't do you very well.
That's awesome.
It hasn't.
That's a very important lesson you just taught to whoever's watching right now, because that sometimes is the difference between success and failure. I mean, I hate to use the word failure, but it's a difference between maintaining recovery and losing sobriety and relapsing. Could be something like that. Because if we make an impulsive decision once, we might get away with it, right? Someone, you say, hey, should I go on this date with this person? I probably shouldn't because that person's drinking. But if I tell people, they're going to tell me not to do it. So I'm just going to go anyways. You might get away with that one time, right? But then that says that opens the door to continually doing behavior that you should run by people, but you're not going to do it. And that always leads to recipe for disaster. I mean, that's 10 out of 10 times, So, and even with the smaller decisions, when you're like, I kind of know what I'm doing, but I'm not fully sure. Let me just ask a few people and see what they say. I always like to ask an odd number of people. So 3, 5, or 7.
Yeah.
And if 2 of the 3 or 3 of the 5 or 4 of the 7 say the same thing, I take it.
Yeah.
I don't question it. And it's usually people that I, care about their perspective. Sarah here wrote something too. She wrote wholesome answer. I know therapist from work. So, yeah. And you got Eileen, which is someone that's been watching this. Thank you for sharing, Mary and Marcus. It's so helpful and hopeful to know that relapsing is not necessarily a hard halt, but can be a reset and a pause button before continuing a healthy path. The magic and inspiration is to see and hear this wonderful version of beautiful Marcus. It really is. And thank you, Eileen. It definitely isn't failure. It's not. Relapsing could be a halt. I mean, Marcus, 21 years old, he got into rehab for a few times. There was some failures, some lack of commitments, lack of focuses. 25 years old is where it stuck for him. And now he's, 26 and 15 months sober, he said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Big deal, man. It's a really big deal. So the last question I think I have here for both of you guys, this is kind of more of a message of a hope to others, but Mary, what would you tell a parent, a mom or a dad, who their son or daughter is currently battling addictions?
Never give up hope. Never, ever, ever. Find Al-Anon, find a support group. Your friends don't understand and you can't expect them to. I mean, we all have friends, and I've lost some friends over this because of the judgment. Don't keep it a secret. Don't feel judged. If people judge you, they're not your friends. Find ways to take care of yourself. That's really important. And I didn't do that. And I feel like the stress really hurt me. When I started to take care of myself and put really strong boundaries between Marcus and I, or around us, on what I was willing to accept, that helped our relationship a ton. So a lot of self-care. Don't give up hope. Find a support group and find treatment. I mean, in all of the times that Marcus went through treatment, we learned so much each time, a little bit different here and there, and eventually it all just kind of gelled and it stuck. Sometimes it doesn't stick right at first.
Yeah. And the message you just gave is so powerful because everything you said is exactly what any mom or dad or spouse or family member needs to do, literally, if they want to deal with this addiction stuff. So the part that was most profound that stood out to me was when you said, hey, your friends are your friends, but here's the thing, they might not understand. And not only will they not understand some of them, they might even judge it and think, like whatever the heck they want to think. So I've always been on record saying this. Your problems related to mental health and addictions, you got to go to people who have a common identification and understanding of what that is, what it looks like, what it feels like, because they get it, they understand, they have empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And professionals also, counselors, therapists, stuff like that, and use that and use your friendship for friendship. And if they can't understand that, then like you said, you might end up losing some friends. I've told this, and Marcus has heard me say this 1,000 times. Your new life is going to cost you your old life, right? Your new life in recovery might cost you your old life. Are you willing to pay that price? Some people aren't. Some people say, I don't want to lose my friends. I just don't want to do it. But then they're constantly in a state of being judged by others. And the stuff about going to Al-Anon, going to treatment, to self-care. I mean, I talk about self-care all the time. You have to do it to survive. I always say self-care is not a luxury. It is a necessity. So it's not something you do because you want to go get a massage somewhere at some spa. No, can you sit down and journal? Can you sit down and breathe? Can you sit down and go on a 15-minute walk? Can you reflect back? Can you take a bath? Can you do something? Whatever the heck is available to you to take care of yourself, because addiction is overwhelming. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of vitality. And without plugging it back in the wall, man, you're going to be a dead cell phone that has no battery charger.
And your head doesn't ever stop.
It never stops.
You're always thinking something, the worst, the best, the hope, the whatever. And you have to find a way to make that stop.
Absolutely. That was a great message, and honestly, well said. Marcus, same thing to you. What would you tell a son or a daughter, or just a human being, whatever they are, who's currently struggling with addiction and can't find a way out, man? What would you say to him or her?
Definitely attend Al-Anon. Look for people that have gone through it, people that have similar experiences. And unfortunately, I have a job where I'm working in treatment now, and I see from an outside perspective how it's taking a toll on family members. And, when it's really personal to yourself, there's, resentments, and there's anger, and there's a lack of trust, and it's too personalized. And when I see it on the outside, it's not really like I get disassociated, but I can just see it so much more clearly that, like, you're just as sick as they are. Enabling and being codependent and things like that are some of the things that, as an addict, I manipulated to the best of my ability. And one thing that I have told multiple people is that when my mom went to Al-Anon, that was like the worst thing for my addiction, because all of the, hey, send me some money, my car broke down, things totally stopped. And I can't imagine how hard it is for a parent to see their kid struggling and to have to set that boundary and say, hey, look, you chose this, you got to kind of find your way out of it.
Yeah. Marcus's point, you said you set some rigid boundaries and you held them. When you initially did that, was that hard to do? And were you also worried that if I set all these boundaries with Marcus, he might like die or something?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can you talk about setting boundaries a little bit?
Yeah. My biggest fear was that my son would die. I mean, that was, and it's not like it's ever going to probably go away, but I don't think you realize how much, you're a mom. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to take care of your kids. And especially when he was a teenager, he didn't have a job, he didn't have whatever. And he was good at manipulating and making me feel really bad for him. Yeah. And again, I didn't understand the extent that he was into his addiction at the time. And so it'd be like, okay, I will give you money this time. But the longer that it went on, it was like, no, the big thing was you chose this life. You chose to do this. You chose to make this decision. And now you're going to have to live with that. My regret is that I didn't do it when he was younger. Before all of this happened, I don't know if anything would have been different, but I think looking back on it, parenting wise, it would have been way more beneficial had I started strong boundaries with my kids back then.
And when you say later, can you just, for a point of reference, how much into this recovery journey did you start setting those rigid, strict boundaries?
It was unfortunately a while. He went to treatment the first time, and it was sort of just mind blowing to all of us, not knowing anything. So probably the second time of like, okay, here we go again. No, we're not doing this. And by the time he came to California, probably a year or two before that, we were done. You know, it's like, find your own money, find your own way. If you want to go do California, figure out a way to get there. We didn't ever give up hope, but we just knew there wasn't anything else we could do. And I struggle a lot with, you know, and this is my thing. I don't want Marcus to be mad at me because I didn't give him money. You know, I mean, that's my stuff. And he knew that. And so he knew how to manipulate that. And I learned. And the only way that I could was educating myself, you know, talking to people who had been through it, like, don't do it, don't give him the money. So it was hard, very hard for me to set them. But when I did, things changed.
Yeah, and that's emphasize on that, because you said, I wish I would have done it sooner. And that's what by the way, every addict says when they try to get sober. They say, I wish I would have done this 10 years ago, right? So that's like a normal thought process we get. But I want that story to be heard and seen by others, because Marcus started exhibiting problems with substance abuse at 13, 14 years old. It was around 23 years old that the mom finally said, I've had enough of this. I cannot continue doing this anymore. Something's got to change. Something's got to be different. I'm putting strict boundaries. And by the way, thank God you didn't marry at 23 and not at 27, at 30, at 35, at 40. Yeah. Because there's moms and dads watching this right now. They're afraid their loved one's going to die. Yeah. They're afraid their kid won't like them, love them, care for them, all that kind of stuff. And they continue to enable. And at least you got it at 23. I'll tell you that. You know, maybe you did get it soon. And man, how cool is this? This was wonderful. Marcus, Mary, I love and appreciate both of you.
Thank you.
Marcus, I look forward to you coming back and seeing your face in person. And Mary, maybe one day if you come visit again, we'll see you.
Absolutely.
And outside of that, thank you so much for giving us graciously giving your time to us and to everyone watching. For everyone else, feel free to share this video with anyone who you think is going to benefit from it. It is a very, very important message of not only the addiction process, but the recovery process. We had two wonderful speakers that were just so eloquent with their words and so knowledgeable about what they were saying. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend. And I'll see you.
Thank you. Take care.
See you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, I can